I've been seeing many authors express their frustration with agents not providing any type of feedback when they send their rejections to queries. Now, typically agents don't provide feedback when they send out their rejections. Most often what authors receive is what we call a form rejection that just has generic language. Now, I totally understand the author's side of this issue in wanting to get that feedback from an agent. After all, you might be wondering, if I don't know why I was rejected, how can I possibly improve? Or you might be wondering, why can't the agent just write a quick one-sentence summary of why they didn't want to move forward with me, so that I have more insight into their decision? While this thinking is totally understandable, there are some specific reasons why agents typically don't provide feedback. And this was actually the subject of an article that a literary agency posted that went a little bit viral on publishing Twitter with authors responding to it. So today I want to provide some insight from the literary agent's side. I do have experience working at a top literary agency in New York City and understand the process very intimately. So I want to give you that insight so you understand where they're coming from with these vague and general form rejections. And a spoiler alert is, it is not because they don't care about you or don't want to help you. That's not the case at all. If you are interested in the book publishing industry, especially the traditional side, I recommend subscribing to my channel. Every week, I either post videos with publishing insights like this one, or I talk about how to strengthen your manuscript, as I am also a developmental book editor. If you have a current work in progress, I also recommend downloading my free resource in the description below. It is called My Story Self-Assessment. It is a worksheet that is going to ask you questions about your story, and your answers are going to help you figure out the weaker areas in your manuscript that you can improve, as well as what is currently working really well in your draft. That is also going to sign you up for my newsletter, where I give exclusive tips that you won't find anywhere on my channel, so don't miss out on that. While you're at it, please go ahead and hit the like button on this video. So let's talk about the first and the biggest reason why agents cannot give you personalized feedback with your rejection, and that's because they frankly just don't have the time. It truly cannot be overstated how many queries agents get on a daily basis. Anecdotally, I have seen agents talk about receiving dozens of queries a day, so you can see how those quickly add up. And at the agency I worked for, there were always hundreds of queries in the agency's overarching submissions inbox. It's also important to understand that the agent's primary responsibility during their workday is to work with their current clients and negotiate book deals. After all, they only get paid a commission whenever they sell a client's book to a publishing house. So their investment at this point is really going to be in the authors they already have signed, because that's how they put food on the table. Queries are an important part of an agent's job, but the review of those queries typically only happens after hours, or if an agent has a slow period and has time to take a look at them. It's important to know that reviewing queries is not the primary task an agent is doing when they go to work and sit at their desk. So when they do have that moment to revisit their query inbox, they're trying to get through as many as they possibly can, because to them, it is more important to not keep authors hanging, wondering if they're going to offer representation, than it is to get back to fewer authors but provide them more specific feedback. And spending extra time, even just a minute, to write out a sentence of feedback will quickly add up if they are reviewing dozens of queries at a time, and that's really gonna slow them down and not allow them to get back to as many authors as they need to. While time is the biggest factor that goes into why literary agents give you vague form rejections, it's not the only one. The next reason why agents don't give you specific feedback is because they know the industry is subjective and that other agents very well might feel differently. The book business is a creative field, and as such, everyone in it is going to have different opinions on what is a great book that should be published and what is not a great book that should not be published. Because of that, agents don't want to inadvertently steer you as an author in the wrong direction with their feedback, because they know that another agent who could be the right partner for your book might feel completely differently. So for instance, if they give you feedback that they didn't like the voice, but another agent ends up loving the voice and signing you on as a client, that feedback ultimately wasn't even very helpful. So why should they have given it at all? They just avoid giving that type of feedback entirely because they know it's ultimately just an opinion and might not even be productive. constructive. There's also the possibility that if they provide specific feedback to an author, then the author might think that if they fix that thing that the agent calls out, then it's an invitation to resubmit to the agent and they will then offer them representation because they fixed that thing. But unless an agent specifically gives you what we call a revise and resubmit response, you should not take it as an invitation to re-query them later down the line if you revise the manuscript. Their decision should be taken as final, even if you address any feedback that they gave you. But some agents might want to avoid this potential miscommunication entirely, and that feeds into another reason why they don't give feedback. The final reason why literary agents typically don't provide feedback to authors is because they don't want to discourage you. A no from one agent, even a dozen agents, even several dozen agents, does not mean you are not going to get published. It truly only takes one agent to share your vision and become your publishing partner. An agent may want to avoid giving you constructive or tough feedback because they don't want you to suddenly feel unmotivated or like your book is not good enough, because that is not the case at all. They want you to ultimately get published. They want you to keep sending out queries and find your right editorial match. They're just saying it's not the right fit for me. With publishing, we often talk about agents as if they're on a pedestal, but remember that agents are ultimately author advocates. They are rooting for you and they do want you to get published. They just have to be selective about which authors they choose to embark on that journey with, since their energy, time, and resources are limited. I want to end today's video with some tips for what to do if you do get specific agent feedback, which does happen. If you get feedback from a literary agent in your rejection, this is what we call a personalized rejection. And you should be very encouraged, because a personalized rejection means that the agent did take the time to provide you feedback that was not required of them. It also typically means that they seriously considered your query and saw the potential in your book project. However, my big caveat with receiving feedback from literary agents is that if it does not make sense to you, do not do anything about it. If you don't agree with the feedback, do not feel the need to go and change your query or your manuscript because of it. I see authors get hung up all the time on something an agent said and worry that they need to fix it or else every other agent is also going to reject them for that very same reason. But remember that feedback at the end of the day is ultimately just one agent's opinion. When I would start considering the agent's opinion is if it resonates with you, it makes sense to you, and you agree with it, then by all means feel free to incorporate it. Or if you receive that same piece of feedback from multiple agents, then it might be time to reconsider if it makes sense to make any changes to your story. I hope this helped you understand why literary agent rejections are so general and vague and frustrating. I hope it also helped you realize that these form rejections should not keep you from querying more agents. I've said it time and time again, traditional publishing really does take a lot of perseverance and resilience. Let me know in the comments where you currently are in the querying process. I would love to hear what your querying journey has looked like so far. And if you're looking for some deeper insight into different responses you might get from literary agents, check out my video where I talk about every different response you could get from a literary agent and some example text of what it might look like. I also go into how a form rejection differs from a personalized rejection in that video. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget that free story self-assessment waiting for you in the description below. Thanks so much for watching and happy querying.